Good? Okay, good evening, everybody. My name's Nick. I'm an alcoholic. Just a couple quick announcements. We'll get rolling here. Food and fellowship always starts at 8 o'clock, so come early. You can always use help setting up and eating all the food. So please come early and join us. We have a couple H&I commitments. Come see us after the meeting if you're interested in being of service for that. One is on Sunday, one is on Tuesday. And now with that, we'll get right to it. We have the greatest chairperson, one of the biggest Philadelphia Philly fans that I know, Brian's going to be our chairman tonight. Please give Brian a warm welcome and welcome home.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Brian, and I am an alcoholic. This is a 1-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday here at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. That's 301 North Main Street in Doylestown, PA. We have food and fellowship for this group, as Nick said, starting at 8 o'clock every week. And the speaker comes on at 8:30, so feel free to come early and join us. Enjoy the coffee, the refreshments we put out. We have a business meeting for this group, meets every Saturday, 7 p.m. to 7:30. So again, if you want to join this group, become a member of service, see any home group member after the meeting. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all our speakers so that others can benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. If there's anybody that's new at this meeting for the first time or maybe visiting from out of town that would like to introduce themselves on a first name basis, we can welcome you. Yeah.
Rich alcoholic from Brooklyn.
Rich. Welcome. Nice, yeah.
I'm alcoholic. My name is CJ. I'm from Far Rockaway.
Welcome. Awesome. Welcome. We get everybody? Anybody else? Okay, the Conscious Contact Speak Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with a working knowledge of the 12 steps and who is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. So there you go. We got people willing to sponsor. If you're out there, if you're new, or if you're struggling, hang out with us after the meeting. There's always a group of us breaking down the meeting. We'd love to talk with you, get you into the solution a little bit. Are there any announcements from the floor for the good of AA? Anybody have anything going on? Yes, Nick.
I'm an alcoholic.
Nick.
We have a Venmo, so there's a QR code on the back there for the 7th Division, or come see me. You can scan my code and I'll put it right in my back pants.
Awesome. Thank you for your service, Nick. Anybody else? Anything going on? Yes, Gary.
Gary, and I'm an alcoholic. Monday night, 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature Step Group meeting right in that room, right out here in the lobby. This Monday night we have a very special speaker that's going to be speaking on the Al-Anon. So all are welcome.
Thank you, Gary. Anybody else? Anything going on? No? A couple quick announcements from this group. This group does have a sister group, which is a big book study meeting. It meets right up the road every Thursday at 7:30 at Salem UCC Church. That's 186 East Court Street in Doylestown. And the coffee for that meeting's on at 6:15. So again, if you want to show up early, enjoy some fellowship, or even help out with some service, we can always appreciate it. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books to help those who cannot afford them can put their donations in the jar on the back table, marked Big Book and CD donations. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got a YouTube channel, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group at Doylestown. We post all our speakers from this meeting on there. I always say it's a good resource to have. If you come here, you hear a good message of hope and recovery that you think someone could benefit from. Makes it real easy to share speakers that we have in here. Got a lot of good library of speakers on there. We also have a Facebook group. It'll keep you updated on our upcoming speakers. We always post a flyer each week of the speaker we have coming in. We post any events we might have going on, anniversaries, workshops, celebrations, and other groups post their happenings on there, the likes. So it's a good resource to have, I always say, to stay tied in with the happenings in AA throughout the area. And with that, I'm going to bring my good friend Jen up here, I believe, and she's going to read our AA Preamble. Please help me welcome Jen.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, an alcoholic. I think I am, the just for today I'm going to do, and welcome home. All right, just for today. I will be agreeable. I will look as well as I can, dress becomingly, talk low, act courteously, criticize not one bit, not find fault with anything, and not try to improve or regulate anybody except myself. And I would like to bring up Mike now for the preamble.
My name's Michael, and I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Okay.
Thanks, Michael.
I'd like to bring up Michelle.
Hi everybody, welcome home. My name is Michelle and I'm an alcoholic. And these are the 12 steps of AA recovery. Step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And I'd like to bring my good friend Ryan back up.
Okay, we have a 7 tradition. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, we'll see that the basket makes its way around. There are no dues or fees for AA membership, but we do have expenses, and your contributions do help us to cover the cost of rent, refreshments, workshops, big books, etc. So we do appreciate it. There's absolutely no smoking on the church property. It's the church's policy. We've got a good working relationship with the church. They let us come here, hold the meeting here every week. They really ask we just keep the premise clean. So be considerate of that as you're coming and going from the meeting. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Now to introduce our speaker for tonight, a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group, on loan to us from the Dyker Heights group of Brooklyn. Please help me welcome Robert L.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Rob Lasecki, and I'm an alcoholic. I'd like to thank Ron for asking me to come up here and speak and been here a couple of times before, and it's been great to come here. I was just met a guy last night at a meeting. We were talking about a friend of ours from Staten Island, and he was saying his sponsor took him out here to come to this meeting, and he said at the last minute, he said, I wasn't feeling well, and he had me speak. I'm like, he set you up. Anyway, that's how this works. And yeah, it's just, it's great to be here, and it's always an honor to be asked to speak and share my experience, strength, and hope. I remember, you know, when I first came in, I definitely did not want to be here at all. Absolutely not. You people belonged here, I didn't belong here. And then when I came in, it was all the old people smoking in the room, the ashtrays. I came back in like 1986. I had just come out of the service, and I couldn't stay. I had an injury, and my father had passed away, and I ended up with his apartment, and it was about 6 months later, I ended up in my first rehab. But before I ended up in my first rehab, I spent 2 months in a psych ward in North Central Bronx. I'm originally from the Bronx. I live in Brooklyn now. I was kidnapped there about 25 years ago. Yeah, so they thought it was pretty serious, I guess, because they were not going to let me out until there was a bed available in that VA facility. So that was my first experience with going into a rehab, and I really believed that my problem was not alcohol. It was another substance, and that was just absolutely not true. But it took me a long time to figure that out. I spent my first 10 years coming in and out of these rooms, basically using the VA system and hospitals as like the Holiday Inn. You know, go in, get, you know, fed again and eat and work out and all that good stuff. And I had a plan, you know. Yeah, go to AA. That's what that was their gist at the end of it. You always go to AA, yeah, sure. But to back up a minute, my first experience with AA was like in 1977. I worked in the church. I answered the phone at the door on the weekend, so I used to have to give the key to the little old man to open up the room for AA. I ended up going to those meetings. But what really was going on, and the problem I had, and I really thought I was different. I mean, uniquely different than others. If what happened to me happened to you, you drink just like I did. And the way I grew up, my mom and dad divorced when I was very young, and immediately a stepfather came into the picture, and he was a very mean person. And but when my mother was there, he was not a mean person, so she probably had no clue what was going on. And there was a lot of bad things that happened that shouldn't have happened to little kids, and so there's a lot of fear. I grew up with a lot of fear, and I always told I was never going to be anything and all that good stuff. And so my plan was to, you know, prove him wrong. And so I decided, by this time, you know, I'm in high school, I'm 17, and I decided to join the Marine Corps because I'm going to be somebody, and if I get caught killing him, I'll be okay in jail. And this was actually my thinking at the time. And thank God, God had other plans. Because when I got out of boot camp, or the day I became a Marine at the end of the boot camp, it's called Liberty Sunday. I'd found out he passed away. And believe me, I was really angry about that. So that was devastating at that time. But what happened more importantly was all of this anger and all of this hate, and I was very violent at the time and very quick with my hands, and it was not, I suffered a lot of consequences for it. And I would tell the bosses where to go before they would tell me where to go, and get rid of me. But it's the way I felt, you know, like I was less than and nothing. And something about that period of time, I really sought refuge in the church, and it talks about it in our book, like about, you know, the childlike faith and stuff. And but I came into AA, that wasn't there. I hated the church. I hated everything about it. I really believed these people were just in business to rob the low ladies. You know, something happened to me that shouldn't have happened in the church, and that just shut me off from it. But before that, I believed like the church was a sanctuary. It was a peaceful place. It was safe, just like in the movies. You know, all the movies. You go to a church, it's sanctuary. You get to the monastery, you're safe. You know, and this was my thinking. And you know, like I said, I didn't grow up with a dad, so my dads were all the TV dads. This is the way it should be. That's where I learned everything from. And you know, it took me 10 years of going in and out of these rooms. And in that 10 years, I met a girl, I met her in Japan, and we you know, stayed together quite a while. And it finally ended, and I'll never forget the day. I'm leaving, God knows what number rehab this was in. But anyway, I come out of a 30-day program, and I'm finally going to go to a 90-day program in the VA. I get her on the phone. I got to go from Manhattan to St. Albans in Queens. And I get her on the phone, I'm sharing this good news, and she's like, well, I'm with somebody else now, and good luck with that. And I'm like, great, I'm really glad, because this is going to take a long time, and I said all the right things. And fast forward, I woke up 6 days later in that Manhattan VA, Macomber, and 6 days after that, they finally pulled the tubes out, and it was a long recovery back. But what happened because of that experience was, you see, I learned that, so I was telling everybody, you know, I had a girlfriend, I had an apartment, I had a great job. Oh, I worked in the post office, so I thought I got fired, but I didn't get fired because I didn't kill anybody and I didn't steal anything. So I found out I had insurance, and I ended up in this really, like, this really fancy rehab, and I thought they were going to throw me out because I'm sitting there with ship captains and pilots and CEOs of company and rich kids and all this, and here I am, a custodian in the post office. But what happened in that place was somebody came up to this podium and they started sharing, and they talked about being abused as a kid, being, you know, broken home and all these other things. And he's like, that's not why I became an alcoholic. And he started talking about how he lost the power of choice and control over drinking. You know, he drank when he absolutely didn't want to, and all these things. So a lot of stuff made sense. And, you know, another thing that happened, what really happened from that was, like, it woke me up and I started to listen. Because prior to that, all I was doing was comparing. You know, I was not identifying with what people were saying. I didn't belong there. I didn't want to be here. I wanted to drink like normal people. And this time, I'm damn going to get it right, because there's nothing I can't do. You know, and so I had to, it changed everything for me that day. And there was a couple other things he said that day, because I really started to listen. And more importantly, I'd been in AA for 10 years, in and out, going to the meetings, just sitting in these meetings, you know, don't drink, go to meetings, put the plug in the jug, all of that good stuff. You know, and, you know, I just went because I had nowhere else to go, keep everybody off my back. It took me 10 years to want to come here, to want to change, to want to do the right thing. And in that facility, what happened was they had these pamphlets and, you know, saw the steps. And I mean, I did them. I went through them. I wrote, and I know now I was not as honest as you should have been or could have been. And I was definitely not putting that down on paper. Nope. That wasn't going to happen. But I did them, and you couldn't tell me I didn't do the steps. So I went through the steps. I did them. They're done. And I fast forward. I pretty much went on like that. I finally celebrated a year after an 11-year journey of doing this stuff. And a month later, I drank for that one day. And this went on and on. But in the meantime, it happened again at 2 years. It happened again at 2.5 years. You know, and along the way, I meet somebody, and didn't think that was going to happen. And good friends, and we ended up getting married. And I'm doing like a ton of service. I'm going to a ton of meetings. I'm like keeping myself so busy, and I'm also going around sharing what you people were sharing at other meetings, and thinking I was helping people. And I had all this knowledge, you know, I read everything. You know, I wasn't asking any, I just read everything, and I was really smart, and I thought I was smart, I thought I knew everything. And the funny thing about it was, it's not really funny now. Well, it's funny now, I don't think it was too funny then. If you'd asked me something and I didn't know the answer, I'd make something up. That's what I would do. I had an answer for everything, absolutely. And so at this time, I'm married now, and I have a child on the way. My wife at the time, she was probably 8 months pregnant. I am on my way to a speaking commitment in Harlem. I'm chairing a big book meeting in Brooklyn. I go over the bridge, I go right to the bodega, I grab two 16-ounce Budweisers, and I woke up in the Bronx the next morning in my mom's house to my wife and her friend getting me the hell out of there and back. And the devastation, the incomparable demoralization, the way it's worded in the book, I mean, it was indescribable. I just was devastated. I just saw my whole life, everything that I worked for, go right out the window. This is beyond alcohol. Something is really wrong with me. Our book talks about there's not a cloud on the horizon. There was absolutely nothing wrong in my life. My bills were paid. The kids were fed. I had a great job. They just made me the shop steward, which is like getting a promotion, kind of. There was nothing absolutely wrong. I couldn't, for the life of me, understand what had happened. And fortunately for me, my wife at the time had met somebody out in Staten Island and took her to the work. No idea what that was. But anyway, I did know something. It was different. She was not just being nice for a day or two or a week. Just something profoundly changed in her. And I just knew, well, that didn't happen to me when I did those 12 pamphlets, you know. And that following Saturday morning in a meeting in Brooklyn, there was a speaker there. And this man basically shared my story. And like the other fella 10 years earlier at the meeting, he started talking about stuff that I didn't understand. He started talking about the steps and how the change came about him. I mean, he had the suicide in his family, and where it took him to where he was living. And, it was just, there was so much there, but the thing that attracted to me was he got to the other side of it. And then I asked that man to be my sponsor, and I started a journey through these steps, through the book, the big book, and I just remembered how desperate I was at the time. Because I tell you this now, there wasn't a chance in hell I would have asked that man anything. Because he talked about God. He said something about God, how God did something in his life and everything. And I was so angry at God. But because I was so desperate, I asked him, because the way he said it, he said something of how he got there or what helped him get there. And I don't remember what it was, actually. But it didn't matter, because I was so desperate, I asked him. I wanted to get to the other side, so I would do what he did. That's what I was always told. When I get over, do what they did, and all this stuff. So, it started a journey. And what I can say is, the most important thing was, for 20 years, I'm reading these steps off the shade, and they turned out to be nothing compared to what I had came up with, what the book said. And I used to believe that first step said I can't drink anymore and my life's messed up because I was drinking, you know. And I just can't say enough how important the beginning of that book was, the preface and the beginning of the book all the way to Bill's story, because that's where everything changes, especially the doctor's opinion. So many things jumped out of that book just came alive for me. It just, like, that's why that happened. That's why that happened. Oh my, you know, I know we're not supposed to curse, but I mean, you know, you dumb bastard, excuse me. But it just was so much, and I mean, that was just the start of the book. I mean, and it was like something clicked. And again, I go back to the beginning, the way that it was laid out, and he helped me lay out the book with the lay aside prayer and all these things, and which was very important for me, and not at the time, but they became very important. It's funny that I need a mic, because I'm from the Bronx, and you have no problem hearing me. I have a loud voice. So back to the preface, again, it's very important. Like, of course, I'd skip that at any time. Oh, by the way, I really don't even remember if I'd ever read a whole book in my life. But I did read this one. And but the thing about the preface was that stuck out to me was the hope. It gave me hope because of the growth. The numbers mattered. Because the only thing mattered, like they talk about trust, the only thing I trusted was the money in my pocket. I didn't trust anybody. I had a huge issue with trust. But I trusted the numbers, I trusted that's what came out of it for me, that slimmer of hope. And then the words that were pointed out to me, like the word recovered. Yeah, I didn't know about that, recovered, I glossed over that. You see, I had read this book before, many times, and then the stories in the back. This time was different. He taught me how to read the book, line by line, sentence by sentence, think about what you just read. So I told you before that I was in a coma and that stuff. I couldn't read or write. I had to learn how to read again. I had to learn how to write again. I had to learn how to walk again. So, I mean, even though this was years later, I was still writing in script and print. So, but, and underlining and all these things that he had me do. And what was going on was just the awareness and seeing how this, every one of these flipped. By the way, anyone that said God, I just removed those don't count. So I go through the other one. But it just changed everything. So that first step was so important, like to learn what I'd suffered all these years. I'm calling myself an alcoholic. I had no idea what an alcoholic was. I'm just saying that because everybody else saying that. You know, I was like, yeah, I drink too much. You know, the wino on the street. But I wasn't a wino on the street. You know, I was better than that. I had a shelf in a storeroom in the VA, in the postal garage. You know, I wasn't on the street. Anyway, yeah, I was different. God, that was horrible. But I got to see my thinking and how my thinking was messed up. And what started to make sense was all these years, those signs, those thing signs. I started to understand why that thing sign was upside down, because my thinking was totally upside down. I was wrong about a lot of stuff, and that was pretty hard for me to admit. And it was difficult. But it was right there in front of me. And the one thing about going through the work, and I can't say enough about sponsorship, is how so important it was, guiding me through that and turning those statements into questions and asking me, what was your experience? What was your experience? How did that happen to you? And one of the famous ones he used to put up to me, well, how'd that work out for you? You know, I still love that one. So I started to see how things were not working out, and my experience with the first step was that I was absolutely going to drink again. It wasn't that I can't drink, I was going to drink. So I experienced both sides. When things were wrong and I drank, or I had a certain amount of time and I kept relapsing over and over, you know, something I'd pointed to, oh, this happened, or she's not being nice to me, or she's bringing up the past, or, you know, they passed me over for a promotion, you know, that guy showed up every day, I kept being late, you know, but I forget about that part. You know, whatever justification I would have, or my thinking was, you know, or just, I was just damaged, I was, you know, less than, no good, you know, they're better than me, you know, they just don't like the way I look, or I'm too skinny, you know, or whatever it was. It was always an excuse, it was always something. You see, that was the thing, I was always blaming everybody else, you know. God, number one, it's his fault for everything, and he don't matter anymore, so it's definitely my stepfather's fault. It's somebody's fault. I wasn't taking responsibility for anything. And yeah, that's my story, and I was sticking to it, and, you know, didn't realize that was like carrying around a ball and a chain. So anyway, we as I go through the work, and then we get to the second step, and the way I was taught was, and what was told to me, that was the solution. And I thank God that said came to believe, because if you told me I had to believe that in this God or something, you'd have a different speaker, probably, because I wasn't doing anything you were telling me, actually. And I just was so stuck in that belief that it wasn't true. You know, there was no God, it was made up. But it was explained to me, and again, that got for response and helped me through it. And I remember one of the questions, you know, you're willing to believe? And sure, I'm willing to believe. I believe you believe. I don't believe it's going to work for me. But then he turned around and said something to the effect that that's all you need is a willingness to believe. And, you know, it kind of disarmed me. When we got to like the third step, it got a little more intense, and the way the book is laid out too, is just more. And, you know, then I had some kind of faith in some way, just redirected, let's say, and how it was, you know, it actually was, it took courage to have faith. Real men had faith or something to that effect. But more importantly, the line jumped out at me in that book, which changed everything for me. Who the hell is, well, I don't think it said hell in the book, but I said hell. Who was I to say there was no God? How arrogant of that was, of me. And how prejudiced. And that's what kind of got me. That the wall started to come down. And then, more importantly, all this time in AA, this is a 20-year journey by the time I'm introduced to this book, I really believed you people were pushing your God on me. I had no clue that this was my job to do, to pick my own God, a God of my understanding, a higher power, whatever, whatever name you want. And I was like, I used to hear stuff about the doorknob or whatever, and light bulbs or whatever, but that never made any sense to me. So this was like different, being taught that I could do this and start over, and that there were 43 others. I talk with my hands, so this thing is annoying over here. And I'm not Italian, but I do because I live in an Italian neighborhood. No, I'm just kidding. But so yeah, that kind of changed everything for me, and it was the start of a beginning. So back to laying out the book with the lay aside prayer in the beginning, and when we finally get into the work. Oh yeah, and my first assignment. Oh yeah, this is great. Because I had a problem with the prayers. I really did. Like, I came from Catholic school. I knew the prayers. Of course I knew the prayers, because if you didn't know the prayers, you got your, slapped on with a ruler on your hand. And they didn't mean anything. Absolutely nothing. Not a thing. And so he had me write the third step prayer in my own words, and taking the third step prayer. I thought he was a genius, I was like, that's pretty cool, that's smart, he's really tricking me into doing this stuff. And it does say it in the book, put it in your own words, a couple lines down. But but I worked with that. I did work with that. That was my prayer, and we took that third step prayer. But more importantly was, I didn't really believe, I didn't believe, but I was doing it. And like I said, having that lay aside prayer, and every time we started to work we said that lay aside prayer before we opened the book. And when he gave me an assignment, I said that lay aside prayer when I started. You see, my sponsor put it clear to me, and it was really important. These were clear-cut directions. The book is laid out that way. The directions are in there. To follow the clear-cut directions, and you'll get the results. I had that in my head. And for me, being in the military, that was easy. Even before I was in the military, it was really important I get it right. So what did you say? And I'd repeat what you said. Oh, you want me to go pick up these 2 things at this store? Great. Or I'd write it down or something. I wasn't going to get it wrong. So this was important. So I did this, not knowing what I was doing, but I did it. And so then we get the next, that little word. These words are important now. Recovered and next, and there's other words in there. And but going back again in the book and underlining and circling things where it said we ask is a prayer. So he told me there was every place that was we ask is a prayer. So there were more prayers. And anyway, so we started getting into it, and we get the columns going, and I was like, yeah, you see, that's why I'm angry. You look at all this, look what they did to me. But more going backwards, I didn't catch it at first. They're telling us what to do with the anger. Like, anger, resentment's the #1 offender. And like, yeah, okay. And said somewhere like, mad is as far as we got. And that was me. That's as far as I got. I wanted to kill you and your whole family. That's it. That's how I dealt with it. I didn't know there was another way. Oh, you mean you want me to pray for the person and try to be helpful? And, yeah, maybe. I don't think so. I wasn't too open to that. But as we got on, and I saw the importance of it, and it was so important, more so today than ever. It's what I got to see. And more importantly, was actually putting it onto paper. And those 3 columns, I never saw how. It was the first time I've ever done anything like that. So, seeing what areas of my life that it was affecting and stuff was that was an eye-opener. And he'd given me an exercise. There were it was a sheet with about 63 defects of character on it, and he had me look them all up and do the opposite, what the opposite was, and how did I do it in my life? Damn, I didn't sign up to go back to school here. But I did it, and it was very helpful because I couldn't express myself. I couldn't tell you what was going on. I was happy or mad. I loved it or I hated it. Everything was extreme, Like the guy was hurting me, join the Marines, kill him, That was it. That was my mind. That was the way I was wired. This was bad, so they're all bad. It was very extreme thinking on my part. So then we get to the fourth column, and that's where everything changed for me. It just, oh my God, did I see there was such another way. To see how that my selfish self-centeredness and dishonesty and how that affected everything, what I actually did, how these defective characters actually showed up, how I was doing more damage holding on to this resentment, not only to myself, but to everybody around me. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I'm a good person, Yeah, that was the change. Anyway, and it was the start. It was the start for me of growing up. Enough. I saw that my way of doing things, that stuff might have worked when I was 10 or 11 or even in a teen. That was not working as an adult. It's not helping anything. It wasn't useful at all. So, finding out and listening to harms and putting them at the bottom of the page, the harms that I caused because of the resentment I held, and learning there was another way. And also what happened in that step that was more important, was important, very important at the time, was I stopped blaming God, anybody, for anything, and that was huge. And it also opened the door for forgiveness, forgiving, like honestly forgiving somebody, which, thank God somebody said, just because I forgave you doesn't mean I have to sit down and have a cup of coffee with you or a meal. And that made sense to me. And one of the things that I had, an exercise I had to do was the realization. Did I do the same or similar to somebody else? That was an eye-opener. Yeah. I might not have abused any little kids, but I sure did abuse other people. Used them, and that wasn't right. Absolutely not right. So yeah, it definitely opened the door for forgiveness. And then in 5, going to my sponsor and sitting down with him and going over this stuff, and again, thank God for a sponsor. I could only see what I could see. Thank God he could see other things. And one of the things that came out of that was the emotional harms I caused. Yeah, that was my girlfriend, and there was this, and there were family members. What about her parents and what I did to them and how I made them worry? Because their daughters left alone, for 3 days or whatever I did. Yeah, so that opened that up. But that step in itself, that was terrifying. And like I said, at one time it was terrifying because the word admitting, how I used to read it off the shade, there wasn't a chance in hell I was going to admit anything. One, I'm from the Bronx. That wasn't going to happen. And number 2, more importantly, was how the hell would I let you know that about me, and then you're going to look at me different? Then I am going to be less than and nothing. And that was more terrifying than anything. But being able to share that with my sponsor again, and him sharing things about his life, I was no longer unique. I was no longer different. And what happened to me happened to a lot of other people. So in doing that and then going and moving on, 6 and 7, that's a great one. Yeah, it's real short in our book, but man, does that have depth and weight. That's actually where we start growing up. Oh, that's actually where I started growing up. And from what I heard from others, other people's experiences, this is where I take ownership. And this is where the change comes in, and this is where I definitely need God's help with. Because I ain't changing nothing, I'm not changing myself. I couldn't stop myself from drinking. So I sure the hell ain't gonna turn these things over and do the opposite without help. So that 7-step prayer became very important to me. When I had that 3rd step prayer, I wrote my own words. I didn't need to use that anymore. I could use the one from the book. And the book ended with the 7th, and to me it became one prayer. And that's what I used for a while. I remember my sponsor giving me a card to carry in my wallet. third step one side, seventh step the other, and I used it a lot. I still have it. It's worn out, but I still have it. If I can't read afterwards, I don't need to now, but I still carry that. And it became very important. Because one of the things he was saying is, and I used to hear this for years when I was, and it's not to put anywhere, how you pray and how you connect with your God or your understanding, and that's your journey. But I used to get really upset with people that used to say things from the podium like, oh, they used to put their shoes on the floor and kick them under the bed. This way they'd have to get on their knees and, pray to God. Not realizing they were doing that as a reminder. My mind was like, there's no way in hell I'm getting on my knees for anybody, and that's just silly. Well, I kicked my shoes under the bed and started praying. But more importantly, it wasn't just in the morning. It turned out to be bringing God in on everything. And God either is or isn't. And I found when I do that, it's a much better day. But so you get to 8 and 9, and again, that's in the way, it's in the book. But and staying on the step and following the directions. Ada was getting ready and putting those names on a card and putting the harms I caused and finding those people. Was I willing? Was I not willing? Oh, I'm absolutely willing. No, everybody's getting a check mark on this one. I got to do this. I'm going to get free. How free do you want to be? I was like, I want to be free. No, I'm going to get a check. Yeah, until it was actually time to go out and make the amends. Those check marks got blurry. But no, it was really important to the preparation, to getting it ready, and taking it into prayer and meditation. Not actually going out and make the amends, but to pray on the amends and see the amends go well. See the amends not go so well. Both ways, be prepared. And that's the way I was instructed to do it, and that was helpful for me. And I thank God because some of them did not go well, and when I actually went to make the approaches. And but that was okay. They felt the way they felt, and they had every right to it. And it wasn't about me getting any, gold stars or anything. It was about me cleaning up my side of the street and being willing to change. A sorry wasn't going to cut it anymore. They'd heard that many times before. But the thing about 9, and that was actually, that's going out in the world and doing this deal. It's really easy to do this in the rooms and, the people around us that are on this path and trying to do this thing. Going out there and talking to strangers or old people that I'd hurt, and harmed. That was very different. But man, did those promises come true? Absolutely, I felt them. And it was just an incredible experience. And it was an incredible feeling, that for once in my life, I didn't feel less than, I didn't feel damaged or broken or all those things that I used to feel and used to think. And, I didn't have to carry around that trauma of the past anymore. I didn't have to, carry the weight of the childhood that didn't go well. And I just like to share this. And all this time I hated God, and God wasn't there. They talk about in 5 about feeling nearness to your Creator. And I knew after sharing that stuff, I felt different. I didn't really feel that. I didn't know that at the time, but I sure the hell know it now. When I look back and I thought that God wasn't there for me, He kept putting me in situations that did get me the hell out of there. Got me out of my home. Got me a job that I needed, or put somebody in my life that helped me. And all that time, in those 10 years, I'm coming in and out of these rooms, using them, because that's what I was doing, definitely using these rooms for everything but getting sober, putting these steps in my life. There was always somebody there to put their hand up. You people never gave up on me, and if that's not the hand of God working, I don't know what is. So, I talk about living in 10, 11, and 12 or so. Yeah, okay, and it's important, and I understand that now. But the importance of 10, step 10 and 1, learning it the way I learned it, to continue to watch for selfish, self-centered dishonesty when I'm afraid. And for me, one of them was the dishonesty was really important. revert back to being educated with a sponsor and finding out that there are more ways to lie than just outright lying to somebody. And my specialty was the lie of omission. I would tell you and everybody and their brother half the damn story. But I'd also tell myself half the story. That's what I was doing too. It wasn't that bad. This time it'll be different. And I'm sure that sounds familiar to a lot of you. And did that in so many different ways. So this was a way of checking myself and that was very important. Because there's, again, with the words, when these come up or crop up, the when. Yeah. And he gave me clear-cut directions what to do. In all the steps, the directions are there, what to do. When I'm angry and I'm upset, what do? What does it tell me to do? Pray for the person I'm angry at. Perhaps look at them differently as a sick and suffering person, like a sick person. Would you do that to yell at a kid? I mean, well, I did. No, you know what I mean, like yell at a sick kid. But, yeah, sometimes I would, but no, it's not the right thing. And that's the difference. Coming to AA in the beginning and going out and drinking again and like feeling like a loser because I drank again. Like if I'm coming here and sitting in these rooms, I should never drink again. I mean, what I was thinking, I don't know. But I wasn't thinking. And it was the same thing. It's the same example. Like it just doesn't work. Everything was action. Everything has a opposite thing. And learning it and following these directions were important. And that 10th step was really to keep this deal going. And stay on this side of it. That feeling I had in 9 was not going to stay unless I continue. Because I'm going to fill it up again. And that was the point of the 10th step. So I don't make this mountain again and don't carry it into the next day, next week, next month, years. I just dumped all this stuff. Why the hell would I want to put it all back in there? So that's the gist. It was very important. But more importantly, it said I ceased fighting on anything, even alcohol. It's been removed, and it was. The thought of alcohol, going out to drink as the first thought, was not it. The anger was still there. Well, I get mad at you, and then go, damn it. And then, okay, maybe take a drink in because that's what I used to do, right? That ain't gonna work. Okay, so now I can't get angry, and I can't drink over it. This is not good. What do I gotta do? Oh, go to God, right? Damn it. And I gotta go to God. And yeah, that's the deal. I gotta ask God for help. The last thing I wanted to do and the first thing that works. And it just changes everything. And it's so important. And practicing it, that's the deal. It was the practicing, the consistency. And the more I did it, the more I got good at it, and the more it became second nature. And, catching yourself. Like you sneeze, you gotta go get a tissue. You get angry, I gotta go to prayer, and I got a way to do this now, and I don't have to stay that way. But the other more important thing in that step for me, I'm sharing my experience here, resting on your laurels. They talk about this resting on your laurels thing and past accomplishments. Yeah, that one was bad for me. I did that, and that didn't work out too well for me. I take that to heart these days, and it's really important. Being accountable to somebody, like I have a sponsor and he has a sponsor, that's really important. Because I had a period in my life I didn't have a sponsor, he had passed away, and I'd asked somebody else to be my sponsor, but I just asked him to be my sponsor. Didn't really have that same relationship. No, I was not doing it the right way. And I said it didn't work out well. It didn't work out well, and after 12 years I ended up drinking again. And by the grace of God, this June I just celebrated 5 years again, coming back. And only because having a new experience with these steps in my life. And that's one of the important things in there was that resting on my laurels. And so all through the book there were promises, and all through the book the promises come true if I did what it asked me to do. And to continue to do that is in 10. And 10 and 11, they kind of meshed. One doesn't work without the other. It goes together. And again with 11, when it starts at night, and the review, so don't clear my day up and work on what I need to work on, what I see, and share it. And it talks about, it gives me clear-cut directions what to do from the time I wake up through the day. And one of the most important things is to pause. The pause in there means something. And I remember that when I was a kid. You know, count to 10. Are you out of your mind? I would get to 1 and my hands are going up. You know, I was just that quick. That was like all the other thing. Oh yeah, think it through. Play the tape. Are you kidding? I hit play and I'm gone. You know, there was no play. I wasn't sitting there listening to no tape. I'm gone. I'm out. That's it. You know, I'm on my way. You know, that did not work for me. So yeah, the pause is important. And earlier I talked about the relationship with the higher power and how that was my deal to do, and what this going through this work did for me was it cleared away the blockages, the things that were blocking me from God. That's what happened, God of my understanding. And I don't want that to ever be blocked again. I don't want to play God again, because I know what that's like. I want to be accountable. I want to bring God in on everything, and that's really important to me. So with that in mind, I read a lot of different things, and I had to learn how to meditate. I didn't know what that was like. I started meditating to a coffee pot and get pissed off that the coffee was not made fast enough. You know, that's where it started. It's evolved over the years, and from people like you shared their experience with what try this, try that, whatever, and it's helped a lot. You know, praying is asking and meditating is listening, and that's what it became for me. But it's important part of the day. It doesn't just happen in the morning when I get up. It can happen at any time. I could stop, I can pause, and can do this. And keeping that connection to me is the single most important thing that I can do today. Because without that, I don't have this. Without that, I wouldn't have gone through this. This wouldn't have happened. It has to stay together. I have to keep growing. You know, cannot rest just because I know this and I had this experience. There's new things to learn. There's new things ways to grow. You know, more importantly, there are new people that help, and I ain't helping anyone. I don't have anything to give them. For me, sitting in the room and listening to other people share, I'm listening to the people that are sharing from their heart. You know, I was the guy in the room sharing from the knowledge. Knowledge didn't get me sober. Practicing what I learned got me sober. Putting these things into action got me sober. You know, that thought, presently, or maybe I could drink safely again. No, that had to be smashed. You know, that was important. It had to happen. I had to concede. Oh, that was the other thing. I wasn't surrendering to nothing, but concede was okay. I could concede. I could not surrender, but I could concede. You guys play with these words on me, but you got me on that one. Yeah, I had to concede on that. And, yeah, I laugh now, but that kept me sick for a long time. I wasn't surrendering. No. But today I can. And back to 6 and 7, that's a surrender. You have to surrender. I don't have the power to pull this out, but he does. And I have to go there, and I have to keep that connection open, and it's important. And to practice these, going into 12, to practice these principles in all my affairs. Yeah, the hardest place to do this is not in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's in my home. It was in my home, and it's still in my home. But I know we're almost going to wrap this up, but I have a quick story here. And so I was a Teamster for a while. You know, I had to retire. There was an accident and I had to retire. But early on in my sobriety, I was a shop steward, and I had to give directions to people. And basically, if you the language we used was not the language we're supposed to be using here in the rooms. And they came up to me and they're like, "What the hell are you on? What are you talking about?" Nothing, I'm sober. No, you had something to do. Do you know you're not cursing anymore? I'm like, what? Yeah, I wasn't screaming, I wasn't yelling, and I wasn't cursing. I got a kick out of that. Yeah, big tough Teamster and all that, you know, not cursing. But I asked them what I was like before that, and I was cursing and this and that, and yeah, screaming and yelling. I don't have to live that way today. So one of the lessons I learned, and it's really important, is for me. If I raise my voice, I'm wrong. I didn't want to hear that, but it was true, and it is true. If I'm raising my voice, I'm wrong. Something's wrong with me, not with you. Yeah, you might disturb me, but what's really going on here? So, but 12, again, with this step, it's so important. To be able to sit down, my sponsor asked me 2 questions when it started. Was I willing to go to any lengths and help another alcoholic? Of course I answered yes to both of them, but I didn't know what any lengths was. I'm like, you got to be out of your mind asking me if I'm going to help somebody. I'm asking you. How am I going to help anybody? You don't want my help. But yeah, I do understand what that means today, and I've been blessed to do that. I've been blessed to have people come in my home, sit across from my kitchen table, and take them to the door and have their experience. You know, and that is such a gift. But even more of a gift is to watch them do the same thing with another and how this thing grows. And that's why we're all sitting here today, you know, because it's still going after all these years. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That was a good one. I just like to say this and end with this. The single most important thing that this program did for me all these years, and I didn't apply any of this, to the years I did apply, was to have that relationship with a God of my understanding and put these steps into practice in my life the best I can. I am not a saint. I don't do this thing perfectly. And when I make a mistake, thank God there are people like you guys out there that could help get me back on the beat and set me right and tell me what the book tells me to do, not what you think I should do. Today I get to share my experience, not what somebody else's experiences was. And with that, I'd like to say God bless you all and thank you for having me.
My name's Nick. I'm an alcoholic. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Robert. Thank you. Our speakers travel here at their own time and expense, so it's customary as to form a line in the front. We thank them on an individual basis. Thank you for Annette and Eric who help out in the kitchen tonight, our coffee makers. Let's give Robert another round of applause. Or if you're struggling, if you need help and you haven't had the experience that Robert talked about, please stay afterwards. We're out here cleaning up and breaking down the meeting. We could use some help cleaning up. All the chairs will go into the closet back here, and the tables will stay just as they are. And we'll circle up. If you care to join us, we'll close with the Lord's Prayer. Yeah. Oh, and the chairs will stay at the tables, please. Okay, a brief moment of silence, please. Followed by our Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven,